We have a segment on the show called Take Us Behind the Curtain where Jalen tells us what it's really like to be in an NBA locker room. I want you to take us behind the curtain and tell us what it's really like to be in an NBA locker room, but just not as a player. You know what I mean? So give us the full game day routine. There's a game at Oracle. What time do you get there? What do you do? Who do you talk to? How long do you wait to talk to the players? Give us like a minute-by-minute recounting of the experience in an NBA locker room, but instead of as a player like Jalen, as a reporter like you.
All right, it's like 10:30. You're going in to shoot around at the Warriors practice facility in the morning. You're talking to Steve Kerr. You're talking to a couple players. You're getting a read on what they potentially think is going to happen that night. Now, in between, when you get out 11:30, 12 o'clock, maybe you have to do some radio stuff, some stuff on TV. Maybe you have to write a story or two. But that's your time to maybe get a nap in, have some lunch, and then you're back at Oracle about 4:30. You're trying to walk around the floor. You're seeing what's happening as guys prepare for the game. And that's when you have your best conversations, honestly. When you're off the record, you're just talking to guys casually, and you're seeing what's on their mind. But so officially, about 5:15 or 5:30, Steve Kerr talks. Then the opposing coach talks about 15 minutes later. Then you have pregame access, which back in the day, Jacoby, about 10 years ago, that was fantastic because you could just walk around the room and talk to guys about anything you wanted. 10 years later, nobody's really in there. It's maybe the younger guys. In my case with the Warriors, it's Klay Thompson literally reading a newspaper at his locker.
I love that about Klay.
That is genuine. That is not for show. He sits at his locker before every game at Oracle and he reads the newspaper.
What newspaper?
The East Bay Times, and he's got an endorsement deal out of it.
East Bay Times.
The East Bay Times. So Klay is hardcore in whatever he does. And I'd add this quickly. It always cracked me up because Klay kind of did whatever he wanted. And this is way behind the curtain, but it always drove Kevin nuts because Kevin wouldn't talk to the media sometimes. And as we saw last season, there were plenty of times where people were like, why isn't Durant saying whatever he's going to say? And Kevin, in my experience, he's the most accessible star I've ever been around. He loves talking about the game. He loves just talking about basketball. He doesn't like all the other stuff sometimes, but basketball, the guy knows more numbers than anybody I've ever seen. But so he would get upset because Klay'd be sitting there at his locker reading the newspaper, or Klay would decide at the end of a game, you know what, I didn't play very well. I don't want to talk. I don't want to deal with any of this. And Kevin would be like, what would happen if I did that? What would you all say if I just disappeared? And I didn't say anything for a while, but that's Klay having carved out his own image and Kevin having carved out his over time. But so aside from all that, now you're at 6:15. You get out of the locker room, maybe you talk to some of the other writers or the broadcasters, have a little dinner, but never eat at Oracle. That food was horrible. That food at Oracle was the very worst.
So where would you eat then?
Well, I usually go to In-N-Out about 12:30 or 1 in the morning after the game, but that wasn't good either.
That's always all the nutritionists say that you should probably have fast food after midnight. It's really the new thing. Like, remember we had the Atkins diet, and we had like a low carb thing, and there was like the cayenne pepper lemonade. Now it's In-N-Out after midnight is the best thing for your body. You heard it here first.
That's the best thing to get you in shape is that little In-N-Out boost right after, and wash it down maybe with the strawberry shake. You know, you're really feeling good. That's really good. That's the good stuff.
There you go.
But so now we're into the game, and it's like 9:30. It ends. You go in, and the Warriors, for the flaws that they had publicly sometimes with Kevin or what happened during the year, they are the best run PR organization that I have ever dealt with in any sport. And I say that because it is like a machine most nights.
You say that because you have to work with them next year. That's why you say that.
Well, but I'm just telling you, even before I got there, I always felt like the Warriors did it the best, and it's backed up.
I've heard this from other sources.
It's backed up by the fact that the Pro Basketball Writers Association, they vote on this stuff every year, and the Warriors have won this award like 4 of the last 5 years, and they win it because in an era where every team is trying to limit access, the Warriors go out of their way to make guys more available. And in the flow of a post-game conversation, it's like a machine. Steve Kerr comes into this press conference room and he does his 10 minutes with the media. And then here comes Kevin Durant. And then right after Kevin Durant, here comes Clay when he wants to talk and when he's not walking away to go hang out with his dog and go home. But there's DeMarcus Cousins. There's Draymond, who is one of the best quotes that there is in pro sports. And then usually Steph is much later. And he takes his time, but he does always show up and he always talks. So now you're into 10:15 or 10:30 and you've spoken to all the players and the coaches and you start writing your stories. Or in my case, you're writing a story or you've got to go do a segment on TV or do a segment on the radio. But from about 10 in the morning until 12 or 12:30 when you're hitting in and out, that is your day. And I don't think most fans understand. It's not just going to the game and having a beer and open up my pizza box. I mean, it is an all-day affair, and that's 82 times a year.
So when does the scrum around the lockers happen? Because when you say they're coming to the press room, when's the locker scrum?
Well, see, and that's the difference with the Warriors and everybody else. The Warriors' home games have a press conference room that I'd say almost every other team doesn't have to deal with because there's not as much attention on them on a regular basis. Most teams, the game ends, the coach comes and talks either in a press conference room or right outside the locker room, and then you've got players that are just sitting at their lockers after they've gotten out of the shower and they do their 5 or 10 minutes of access. Now, depending on who the player is and what kind of mood they're in that day, you're supposed to only be able to wait for 10, 15 minutes in the locker room, but some of these guys just love hanging out and making everybody wait. Shout out to my old friend Jimmy Butler, who is one of the culprits of that always. But if you get a guy in a good mood, you should only be in that locker room for 20 or 25 minutes after the game. If guys want to mess around a little bit, man, the amount of hours that I've spent in various locker rooms listening to guys BS and make fun of the media and everyone else, that's a lot of time.
Do you think there's a palpable tension between players and the media?
Yes, absolutely.
How does it manifest itself?
That players do not want to go out of their way to say anything anymore. And even when they do talk, they don't want to say anything that's going to rock the boat or make any news because they feel like in so many cases it's being taken out of context. And that's what's happened with the proliferation of websites and people with Twitter and journalists that are looking for that headline. I mean, there are a lot of reasons why, but the answer to your question is 100%. In the time when I started covering the league, and I've been around other pro sports too now, most athletes just don't want to deal with the media because they don't want to deal with the potential backlash of whatever their words may be.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports analysis and highlights, download the ESPN app. And for live streaming and premium content, subscribe to ESPN Plus.